There are different minhagim during the month of Elul. One we're familiar with is the minhag of starting to blow shofar in the month of Elul, Rosh Chodesh Elul, the first of Elul, as we'll do until Erev Rosh Hashanah. Erev Rosh Hashanah, we stop blowing shofar for the day, and as well we say L'David Hashem Ori. We say we add to different parts of davening, and Svardim begin doing slichas even a month before. We begin this year will be the minute we make the minimum this year because we need at least 4 days of slichas before Rosh Hashanah. So when Rosh Hashanah falls on Wednesday night and after, so therefore we could start. We always start Motzai Shabbos, and therefore we'll be able to get it in Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night. So we only have the week before. But there's another minhag brought down in the Kitzer Shulchan Aruch, the Mata Ephraim, other Achronim, the custom of checking one's tefillin and mezuzahs during the month of Elul. So what is that based on? Is that an obligation? Is it just, in general, how often does one have to check their tefillin and their mezuzahs, independent of Elul? So there's a mechilta in Parshas Bo, based on the pasuk V'shamarta sachuka zos miyamim yamima. So the mechilta has a double chiddush. He writes, one has a biblical obligation. V'shamarta sachuka, he learns, is referring to tefillin. That we'll see that to the machokas in the Gemara. You have to watch this chukah tefillin miyamim yamima. So he learned that once a year, every year, one has a biblical obligation to check their tefillin. So the question is, do we paskin like this mechilta, that one has a biblical obligation every year to check our tefillin?
Is he based on pasuk?
The pasuk is b'shamarta sachuka azos miyamim yamima. To him, it's an explicit pasuk in the Torah in Parashas Bo.
Oh, yamim means year.
Yeah, that's his interpretation. Yamim yamima every year. So, do you check your tefillin every year or not? Is that a raya or no? So either way, so we don't pass like this mechilta. Actually, the mechilta has two chidushim. Number one, it's a biblical obligation to check your tefillin, and secondly, you do it every year. There's a Gemara in Menachos, a machlokas between Rabbi Yossi Haglili and Rabbi Akiva on this pasuk. When the pasuk says "Shamarta sachuka hazos," what is it referring to? Like, why is it so difficult? Open up the Chumash and look. The issue is because it's talking about two different things in close proximity. On one hand, it is talking about tefillin. On the other hand, the Torah is referring to the Karban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb. So, which one? So it's a machlokas, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yossi Haglili, whether the pasuk is talking about tefillin or it's talking about Karban Pesach. So, I think it's Rabbi Yossi Haglili. I might be mixing up the names. Rabbi Yossi Haglili says it's talking about tefillin, like the mechilta. However, he says miyamim yamima means every day. He says there's a mitzvah of wearing your tefillin, not checking. There's a mitzvah of wearing your tefillin every day. That's how he learns the pasuk. V'shamarta sachuka zos miyamim yamima. So he claims that it means the pasuk's telling me I have an obligation to wear, well, not literally every day. Yes. Every day I'm obligated, and a couple of Shabbat. Because even actually maybe he does hold it, because Minat Torah, maybe there's a whole discussion, because miyamim yamima to exclude leilos, to exclude nighttime. Because there are different opinions whether Laila is man tefillin or not. But either way, he refers to wearing your tefillin daily, and that's a biyamim yamima. And the other opinion says no, it's referring to Karban Pesach. Yamim yamima means 1 day. So either way, you have min akatza or akatza. I mean, either you have the means to wear your tefillin, referring to tefillin. So it's clearly not going like the mechilta. The mechilta is either Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That's a medrash halacha. That's what the mechilta is. It's clearly not going like our Bavli, because according to the mechilta, it's referring to tefillin, and it's once a year to check it. either, according to our Bavli, it either is referring to Karban Pesach, that makes it sense you do it once a year, or tefillin means daily. So according to either opinion, it's not working with the Mechilta, that there's a biblical obligation to check one's tefillin every year. We don't passing like the Mechilta. Well, why is this? Why don't we have to check our tefillin once a year? How do we know our tefillin is kosher or not? So we have a general rule in terms of chazaka and rov, that we know achari Rabbi mahatos. We have a general din that, let's say, it's not limited to here. It's a principle in all of Shat and all of Gemara that, let's say, rov behemoth ksheras. We have a general principle that the majority of animals, the cow, the kosher animals, kosher meaning free from treifas. Treifa, we use the term Lashem b'nei adam treif, like something's not kosher. But treif has a halakhic terminology, like a hole in the lung, and in different parts of the body is something in the animal that's not right, so that automatically makes the animal we call a treifa, which is a halakhic term, but it's also treif, you can't eat it. So there's a Mishkanas Yaakov that, based on a Ramban in the beginning of Chulin, that tells us the principle, that the Gemara in the beginning of Chulin talks about the different types of treifas we have to check for. If you're a shochet, if you slaughter animals for a living, so you have to go ahead and you have to do a bedika, you have to go check the lungs of the animal. And every behema, you do a checking of the lungs. That's where the whole thing of glad kosher comes, that how smooth the check is over there. That's why I've been to different places where it says glad kosher vegetables, glad kosher fish, glad kosher is a specific. Today glad kosher is used, as a generic, but it's obviously, legally speaking and functionally, it means to talk about checking for the lungs. So so the Ramban asked in the beginning of Chulin, I think there are like 70, there are many treifas that something could be wrong with the animal. And yet we only check the lungs. Why don't we check the other areas? Because it could be treif based on many other factors. So the Ramban tells us that because there's something called a miyat hamatzoi and a miyat she'eino. So first there's a din of rov. That minat Torah, when you have a 51% chance or higher of something to be good, so biblically speaking, you can follow the rov. So 51% or more, you have the ability to assume it's good. So then less than 50% is no longer, if it's less than 50%, so biblically speaking, you'd have to check. But if it's over 50%, biblically speaking, it's fine. However, midrabanan, there's a principle called a miyat hamatzoi. That if it's a miyat, is a minority, but matzoi found. So let's say, as the example I usually give is, let's say if you go to the Bathurst Lawrence area of Toronto, so you'll see many Jews around, many people who look Jewish. So you ask a Gentile on the street or someone here, you say, how many Jews do you think there are in Toronto? They'll say, I don't know, 3-4 million, and of course it's a couple 100,000. But the point being is, but it's clearly a miyat, but it's, everyone knows there's a significant minority, significant percentage of Jewish people. So either way, when it's a miyat hamatzah, if it's something which is matzah, even though it's less than 50%, so midrabanan, we paskin that you have to do a bedika. And if it's less than, let's say, what's called 10%, that's what the Mishkanas Yaakov says, 10%. But so even though we'll see the different opinions, what is that percent to me? But whatever that percent is, if it's, so the Ramban says checking the lungs is a miyat hamatzah. So therefore so let's assume 10%. So there's a more than a 10% chance that you're going to find a treifa. So then you have a rabbinical obligation. See, the Mechilta learns, we'll see if he thinks checking the tefillin is more than a 10% chance of something going wrong with it. But either way, by the lungs, that's what the Ramban writes. So whatever, because they say about, because the different opinions. Rav Soloveitchik used to do, when he was a Rav in Boston, where he lived, he used to, I guess in the beginning, he used to do everything. So he used to be the Rav HaMakshir at the butcher shop. So he used to say he used to look for every leniency in the book, and he still found about 15%. Again, this goes back way back in the 60s, whatever it was. I'm not saying it changed or not, but this goes back then. He said he found going every 15% of the animals had a treifa on the lung. So he said in America, the higher percentage is more lenient, by the way, because that means it's only to have a 15% chance of it being not good. It's still considered to be in a mutzah. And he used to say when the butcher shop opened across the street that claimed it was glass kosher, he said, baloney glass kosher, it was glass treif. He said, I checked through every leniency in the book, and I still only came up 15%. These people are saying it's glass kosher. I don't believe them. It's probably not even kosher there. So therefore, the obligation is that we assume biblically you go by rove. Rabbinically, if it's above 10%, you have to do a rabbinic check, and less than 10%, you won't be obligated to check. So that's not this halacha. That's not this halacha by animals, but in general. But we'll have to continue. We all know we're in the month of Elul, and the minig is in the beginning of the month of Elul, we stop blowing shofar every day, and the minig among Tzvardim is 30 days before they started saying slichas. We don't begin until next week. Next Saturday night is the beginning of slichas. And we have the minimal amount possible. We have 4 days in, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we'll continue on until Yom Kippur. So we'll discuss some in Yonei Rosh Hashanah, as it's about 10 days away or so. So the Torah describes the mitzvah of shofar in 2 ways. In Parashas Emor, it describes the shofar as a zichron trua, and in Parashas Re'eh, I believe, it describes the shofar as a yom trua. So we have one in the Torah describes the shofar as a yom trua, a day of blowing of the shofar. On the other hand, in Parashas Emor, it's called a zichron trua, remembering of the shofar. So how do we reconcile the 2 different psukim? On one hand, how is it a yom trua and a zichron trua? So the Yerushalmi, the Bavli discusses this and rejects this answer, but the Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud, keeps it, that it says yom trua and zichron trua. So we know Rosh Hashanah, certain years like today, like this year, it's going to fall out during the week. It falls out on Thursday. And certain times, based on the calendar, Rosh Hashanah can fall out on Shabbos. So the Yerushalmi says it's very simple. When is the Yom Trua? When Rosh Hashanah falls out during the week, so it's a Yom Trua, we actually blow the shofar. But when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, it's not a Yom Trua that year, it's only a Zichron Trua, because when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, we don't blow the shofar. That's how the Yerushalmi reconciles. That's why we need the 2 different psukim for 2 different times. When Rosh Hashanah falls out during the week, and Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. However, the Bavli doesn't accept it. It doesn't make any sense. You can't give this answer, because the question is, why don't we blow shofar on Shabbos? Because the Mishnah tells us in the beginning of the 4th parak of Rosh Hashanah, certain places we do blow shofar on Shabbos. It says, "V'mikdash hayu tokin avalol Medina." In the Beis HaMikdash, they used to blow shofar. Even on Shabbos, they used to blow shofar. So, avalol Medina. So that's the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, that everyone agrees that they blew shofar in the Beis HaMikdash and not outside the Beis HaMikdash. So the question is, why not blow shofar in the Medina? Why do we make a distinction between the Beis HaMikdash and our purpose is Medina will mean, let's say Yerushalayim, the old city of Yerushalayim, the one surrounded by the walls, or according to the Rambam, that would be included in everything outside of that. But we'll just go with the simple explanation of Rashi. In the Beis HaMikdash, yes. Everywhere else, no. So according to why do we make a distinction? So according to the Bavli, it's not a biblical distinction. That really, Minat Torah, we should be blowing shofar in Hamilton, in Toronto, in New York, in LA, in Massachusetts, anywhere you are, you should be blowing shofar. Why don't we blow shofar on Shabbos outside of the Beis HaMikdash? That's a rabbinic decree, Gzeira de Rava, that Rava made a decree that would concern that everyone's obligated in hearing the kol shofar, and not everyone's a baki, an expert in blowing the kol shofar. Therefore, the concern is you're going to come carry the shofar in a public place and desecrate the Shabbos. So, biblically speaking, we should blow shofar, even when Rosh Hashanah. So, if that's the case, according to the Bavli, so why don't we make a Gzeira de Rav in the Beis HaMikdash? If biblically speaking, there's no difference, so why don't we make a rabbinic decree in the Beis HaMikdash and not outside the Beis HaMikdash? So, the Gemara tells us because Ein Shvus b'Mikdash. When it comes to the Beis HaMikdash, we don't make any rabbinic decrees. That Kohanim's reason, and Kohanim are very careful and meticulous in doing the mitzvahs properly. We don't have to make any rabbinic decrees. So therefore, according to the Bavli, it comes out that biblically there's no difference between the Beis HaMikdash and the Medina. There's only a rabbinic difference that we say Gzeira de Rava, we're afraid of carrying outside the Beis HaMikdash, but not inside. So what does the Yerushalmi do with that question? The Yerushalmi made a distinction. It says Yom Trua is referring to during the week. Zichron Trua is referring to on Shabbos. So what does the Yerushalmi do with the distinction? Why, if biblically speaking, so the Yerushalmi disagrees and says even biblically speaking, you don't blow the shofar outside the Beis HaMikdash. Why not? Why make a distinction between the Beis HaMikdash and outside the Beis HaMikdash? So the Yerushalmi has its own drasha. It says the pasuk Yom Trua is right next to the in Pinchas, right next to the Karbanos, right next to the Beis HaMikdash. The Yerushalmi makes a drasha, b'makam Karbanos, b'makam Beis HaMikdash, it's always a Yom Trua. So the Yerushalmi has a special Gzeres HaKasav that in the Beis HaMikdash, no matter what, you always make it's always a Yom Trua. So therefore, it comes out. Everyone agrees to the bottom line, but for different reasons. So the Mishnah says, "B'mikdash hayutoken." Everyone agrees in the Beis HaMikdash they blew shofar on Shabbos. Avalom Medina, and everyone agrees they did not blow outside. The question is, why didn't they blow? According to Yerushalmi, it's a biblical Zichron Trua tells me that there's no mitzvah outside the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos. In Hamilton, there is no mitzvah whatsoever. That's why we don't blow shofar, because Zichron Trua. And according to the Bavli, we should blow shofar. Biblically speaking, we should blow shofar. It's only for a special rabbinic decree we don't blow shofar. So, my nafkamina, what's the practical difference? Why I don't blow shofar on Shabbos? Either way, I'm not going to blow shofar on Shabbos. So what do I care if it's based on Zichron Trua, the Yerushalmi, or based on Gzeira de Rava of the Bavli? Either way, the bottom line comes, if we're outside the Beis HaMikdash, we're not blowing shofar on Shabbos. So what's the practical difference between the Yerushalmi and the Bavli? So one practical difference is as follows. If you look at your Magzer of Rosh Hashanah, you'll notice, so even though we don't paskin, we paskin like the Bavli, but nevertheless, we don't reject the Yerushalmi totally. In other words, if you look at our Magzer, you'll notice this year when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, the Magzer will tell you, insert the words Yom Trua. And when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, they'll say, when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, insert the word Zichron Trua. So even though we don't go with the Yerushalmi, we don't reject it either because we have it in our davening. So let me ask you something. Let's say this in a week Thursday in your davening, instead of saying the words Yom Trua, you say the word Zichron Trua. One mistake, one word. What's the difference? Yom Trua, Zichron Trua. How important could it be? And let's say let's move to Musaf Rosh Hashanah, the longest davening of the year. It's with all the Shovas, Malchus, and Zichronos. So let's say, and you remember after you finished davening, you remembered, wait a second, it's Thursday today, it's not Shabbos. and I said Zichron Trua instead of Yom Trua, would you have to go back and repeat the Shmona Esrei, the Musaf Rosh Hashanah? So according to the Bavli, according to the Yerushalmi, you'd have to go back. It's the wrong day, because the Yerushalmi says Zichron Trua is referring to Shabbos, Yom Trua is referring to during the week. So you're davening the wrong davening for the wrong day. According to the Bavli, they both apply to Ben B'chol, Ben B'Shabbos, because it's only a din d'Rabbanan that we don't, but really Yom Trua and Zichron Trua apply to both. So according to the Bavli, then we don't have to go back. So according to the Yerushalmi, you have to go back and repeat your Musaf Rosh Hashanah. According to the Bavli, no, we passing like the Bavli, you're okay. And therefore, if one did make a mistake, it wouldn't be a problem. One would fulfill the mitzvah. So that's one practical difference. Another practical difference would be as follows. It was a question that there won't be a practical difference today, this year, because Rosh Hashanah doesn't fall out on Shabbos. But a potential practical difference is, and it happened many years ago in Yerushalayim, that one of the 150 years ago, a big Talmid Chacham who lived in Yerushalayim said, you know what? It was Rosh Hashanah Shachol b'Shabbos. He says, I'm going to go blow shofar in my shul this year. I'm not sure why this year, not last year, maybe it wasn't Rosh Hashanah Shachol b'Shabbos in a couple of years, but he said, and it was a big tumult in Yerushalayim. All the Gedolim were arguing on him. So I think the bottom line is, I'm not sure if he ended up blowing or not that year, but it's not relevant to us whether he did or didn't. But he wanted to. The question was, so if I know someone is going to blow shofar on Shabbos, I can't blow shofar on Shabbos because I'm not allowed to. But let's say this Rav Paskin, and he's going to do in his shul, that he's going to blow shofar. Is there any Indian for me to go to that shul and try to hear shofar that year? Is it a meaningless activity, or is it something I should try to do? You know, I'm sure that's a good way to get money for the shul, hike up ticket prices, if everyone has to go to that shul that year. So is there any fulfillment if I hear shofar that year? So that would depend on the Machlokas Yerushalmi and Bavli in terms of why don't we blow shofar when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. According to the Yerushalmi, it's a pasuk, Zichron Trua, there's no mitzvah of shofar when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. According to the Bavli, there is, it's just a rabbinic decree. So according to the Yerushalmi, there's nothing to discuss. It's a meaningless activity at best, and maybe you violated the Rabbanan, blowing shofar, Shalom b'Makkah mitzvah, unless maybe you're practicing for tomorrow. But either way, according to the Yerushalmi, you get nothing out of it. There's no point in going. In fact, it will extend davening longer. It'll take you another 5-10 minutes. So the reason not to go to that shul. However, according to the Bavli, it touches on a fundamental question. According to the Bavli, what happens when the Torah tells you one thing and the Chachamim tell you another? So obviously, who do we listen to? When God tells me something and the rabbis tell you something, so who do you listen to? So you listen to the rabbis, but only because the Torah tells me to listen to the rabbis. There's a pasuk we read, and again, it depends which rabbis we're discussing, but that's a separate shir. But assuming the appropriate rabbis, you listen to them.
But really was kosher.
Yeah. So it says, the why? Because it's a pasuk we read in Parashat Shoftim a couple of weeks ago. Well, sasam in adavar asher yagidu chayamin. It says, don't turn away from the rabbis, right or left. So what does it mean, right or left? So Rashi quotes the famous Sifri that even if they tell you right is left and left is right, nevertheless you still listen to them. So what does that mean exactly? So in fact, Herman Wouk, I don't know if you read any of his books or saw the movie, The Cain Muni. I didn't see either. Actually, I saw the book in Shalom a couple of years ago. So the book does exist. I didn't read it, but I read the cover. And it was a movie, my uncle told me. He saw it. Basically, so he taught in Yeshiva University. He didn't give shir. I guess he taught a secular topic. And he was telling the boys in Yeshiva why he named the book, how he got the idea of the Cain. Basically, the Cain Muni. Cain is the name of a ship. Mutiny is what happened. Basically, the captain went psycho. He went crazy. He wanted his strawberries, his French toast in the morning, and he was doing all these crazy things. And the question is, but the captain's in charge on the boat. So do you listen to the captain when he's telling you to do ridiculous things? That was the theme of the book. So he says, how did I get it from? I got it from Rashi and Chumash. Rashi says, you listen to the Chachamim, even if they tell you left is right, right is left, you listen to the rabbis. So one of the kids would say, but no, you don't understand, that's not what Rashi says. He's calling this Sifri. Sifri can't mean that, because the Mishnah says in the beginning of Krisus, when the Beis Din Agadol, it talks about when the Beis Din Agadol makes a mistake, and the people follow, it depends on, you have to bring karbanos, you have to, so that we don't follow the rabbis in error. If the rabbis paskin on something that was wrong, you have to bring a karban. So it's not the pshat. So he didn't change the title of the book, but nevertheless, that's what he said. So the question is, over here, the Torah tells us, you listen to the rabbis. It says to the Ramban, right? It means even if you know they're wrong, you don't listen to them. I mean, if you're a Talmud Chacham and you know it's a mistake, you don't follow it. But if you think you're just a regular balabas, you don't know that much, the rabbis know more than you, and you think they made a mistake, don't worry. To you it looks like right or left, but left or right, but really right is right and left is left. But either way, so the question is, the Gemara tells us in Yavamas, Yesh, so how much power do the Chachamim have? So it says, Yesh koach b'yad Chachamim la'akor dvar Torah b'shevi al tasa. So the Gemara limits the power. They don't have unlimited power. They can't just change anything it says in the Torah. In fact, they usually can't change. So they can only change you by telling you not to do something. In other words, let's say you're having a Mac attack and you got to go to McDonald's. So the rabbis can't tell you to go. Why? Because that's actively going against what it says in the Torah. The Torah says you can't eat non-kosher. They can't go ahead and actively tell you to go ahead. But b'shei al tasa, but merely telling you not to perform a mitzvah, that the Chachamim under certain times could tell you. So yesh koach b'yad Chachamim to uproot divrei Torah b'shei al tasa. So that they can tell you. So not blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah would be b'shei al tasa. So the question is, how much? So the Chachamim can tell you, based on the Gemara, they can tell you not to blow shofar on Shabbos, which they do. When Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos, we don't blow shofar. So how much power do the rabbis have when they say you can't blow shofar? Does it mean the mitzvah of shofar no longer exists anymore? Now the Chachamim said you can't blow shofar. That's it, shofar. Oh no, they can't take away a mitzvah in a Torah. They can just tell me not to do it. But the mitzvah of shofar stands where it always did. So what's the pshat when the Chachama oker a mitzvah? Could they uproot the mitzvah and it doesn't exist anymore? Or is it no? Of course it exists. They can just tell me not to do it. We have as a discussion by sukkah. The Gemara talks about making a sukkah which min ha-Torah is kosher, but midrabanan is no good. What's the case? You build a kosher sukkah, but you put the table outside the sukkah. So what do we say? We say you're going to end up where the food is. So therefore we say you can't have a sukkah where the table's outside. You'll end up eating outside the sukkah. So the Gemara has an expression called Kiyamta mitzvah sukkah kol yamecha. If this is the only sukkah you ate your whole life, you have not fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah. So what does that mean? I haven't fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah at all, or I haven't fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah the way I should have. So that's a machlokas Tosfos and the Ran. So that's the same issue here. When the Chachamim, so if I say, so according to Yerushalmi, if you blow shofar on Shabbos, it's meaningless zichron trua. There is no mitzvah. But within the Bavli, you have a discussion among the Rishonim when the Chachamim said no shofar on Shabbos. Does that mean the mitzvah shofar no longer exists? Well, no, of course it exists, but I just can't do it. So the nafkamina is if there's a shul going to do it, this rabbi in this big Talmud Chacham Yishayim wanted to blow shofar based on different reasons that maybe it is the Mikdash Yerushalayim, whatever the reason, different reasons why. Should you try to go ahead? So it depends on how you learn pshat in the Koach HaChachamim. So if you assume that they could uproot the mitzvah completely, then there's no point. But if not, there is. And the nafkamina would be for Sephardim. Let's say a Sephardi shul. Let's say they forgot it's Shabbos, or they didn't know you don't blow shofar. Let's say they went ahead and blew shofar on Shabbos. So why is Sephardi different? Because Sephardim make a Shechiyanu only the first day of Rosh Hashanah. We make a Shechiyanu both days of Rosh Hashanah. So the question is, let's say they blew shofar in Shul on Shabbos and they made the Shechiyanu. Come along Sunday, they have to make another Shechiyanu. So it depends. If you hold like the Yerushalmi, of course you do, because you didn't get any mitzvah. According to the Bavli, one could discuss whether they got the mitzvah and then whether it would be dependent on how much, whether the Chacham could offer the mitzvah completely or not. We'll have to continue.